Coming up today, South Korea admits it will be difficult to arrange reunions for war-separated families before next month's holiday period, given the lack of time to contact and organise the relatives. After blowing up an ancient temple in Palmyra, the Islamic State terror group releases photos of the UNESCO World Heritage Site's destruction. Plus, China cuts interest rates yet again in a bid to boost its sagging economy after further falls on the stock market. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello and welcome. It's 6 a.m. on Wednesday, August 26th here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broome and you're tuned in to our early morning edition of Arirang News. And we start with the latest regarding the recently completed interKorean talks. The high-level discussions lasted for more than 3 days, yet no details were provided during that time. However, an official from South Korea's unification ministry has since given us a rundown of everything that came up during the closed-door meeting. Hwang Sang-hee reports.
Regarding the recent landmine explosion in the demilitarized zone that seriously injured 2 South Korean soldiers, an official at South Korea's unification ministry said Seoul views Pyongyang as having acknowledged its responsibility for the attack. Although a clear apology was not given, the official who attended the high-level talks noted it is the first time North Korea has expressed regret over its provocations in a formal accord. Surprisingly, North Korea made no mention of the ongoing joint military drills between South Korea and the United States, which began earlier this month. Pyongyang views the annual drills as a rehearsal for invasion. Seoul and Washington maintain they're purely defensive in nature. But North Korea did bring up the issue of restarting South Korean tours to its Mount Kumgang resort by attempting to link the matter with the resumption of reunions for war-separated families. The tours were suspended in 2008 after a South Korean tourist was shot dead by a North Korean guard. The official said Seoul cut Pyongyang off short regarding the two issues, saying they must be dealt with separately. The unification ministry official said that he views the latest high-level agreement as a new start for the two Koreas. This as both sides agreed on the need to hold more systematic interKorean talks on a regular basis down the road. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
Now, working-level talks will soon take place on arranging separated family reunions around the Korean Thanksgiving holiday next month. But South Korea's unification minister has admitted it'll be difficult to hold the actual reunions before the holiday. A spokesman for the main opposition party said Hong Yong-pyo made the assessment at a briefing on the interKorean deal to party lawmakers at the National Assembly. Hong reportedly said there were practical challenges in arranging a large-scale reunion, such as contacting many families and relatives. So the two Koreas have decided to hold smaller-scale reunions on a more regular basis. The minister is also known to have made clear to North Korean officials during the meeting that it would be difficult to proceed with the reunions without the North's responsible behaviour regarding the recent landmine explosions that severely injured 2 South Korean soldiers. And as part of their agreement, South Korea on Tuesday pulled the plug on its anti-North Korea broadcasts along the border. Seoul's defence ministry says, although now silent, the loudspeakers will stay put. Kim Hyun-bin reports.
As agreed upon, South Korea's defense ministry halted all propaganda broadcasts along the border on Tuesday. However, it emphasized the loudspeakers would not be dismantled. Experts say the speakers are part of a contingency plan in the event of future provocations.
The agreement was to stop all broadcasts on the border. Neither side mentioned tearing down the speakers in the agreement.
Earlier this month, Seoul restarted the broadcast for the first time in over a decade, following the landmine explosions in the demilitarized zone, which were blamed on North Korea. Pyongyang's decision to express regret for the incident, a change from its previous stance of denying responsibility, is being interpreted as an admission that it was behind the provocation. The South Korean military lowered its highest alert level at noon on Tuesday, when North Korea agreed to lift its quasi-state of war. The North also said it will move its soldiers and artillery from the front line back to their regular footing. Speaking to reporters Tuesday, Seoul's defense ministry spokesman said South Korea would reduce its alert level accordingly.
North Korea said it will lift its semi-state of war status as of noon, and we will carefully monitor military movements north of the border. Our military will stay prepared for possible provocations in the meantime.
In another development, some of the 50 North Korean submarines that left port on Friday appeared to be returning to base. There were concerns as South Korea had been unable to trace them on radar systems. The defense ministry says it will continue patrols along the southern side of the northern limit line, de facto maritime border, maintaining that any military actions from the north will be countered strongly. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Now, North Korea displayed a rarely seen side this week by expressing regret over the recent landmine explosions at the demilitarized zone. Still, its top military official to the talks had a few sharp words for South Korea in front of his home crowd. Kim Min-ji has the details.
Like South Korea, North Korea was quick to report on the outcome of the marathon inter-Korean dialogue.
The North side expressed regret over the recent mine explosion that occurred in the demilitarized zone, injuring soldiers from the South side.
Unlike in the past, this time Pyongyang did not distort details of the agreement. North Korea's representative at the talks, Hwang Byung-seo, the director of the General Political Bureau of the Korean People's Army, also announced a six-point agreement on state-run television. However, it was accompanied by sharp remarks aimed at South Korea.
Through North-South emergency high-level negotiations this time around, South Korea must have learned a serious lesson that if it creates a groundless case and provokes the other side, it will ignite a military clash.
Hwang was likely referring to the South's claim that North Korea is responsible for the recent mine explosions in a move to deflect full responsibility. He also called on Seoul to sincerely fulfill its end of the agreements. Despite this, the top North Korean official expressed hope that the talks will pave the way for better inter-Korean ties under a fresh atmosphere for improving relations. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
And South Korea's rival parties have been unified in their praise of the breakthrough deal between Seoul and Pyongyang. They hope it can mark a new chapter in inter-Korean relations. Park Ji-won reports.
The ruling Saenuri Party welcomed the agreement, crediting President Park Geun-hye for adhering to her principles and also heaping praise on South Korea's top security advisor Kim Kwan-jin and Unification Minister Hong Yong-pyo for exercising patience throughout the talks. The party expressed hopes that the two Koreas would soon agree to hold inter-Korean talks and resume reunions of separate families from the Korean War. But the ruling party did stress that the agreement will be meaningless unless it's fully implemented.
What happens from this point on is very important. Each promise is empty unless it's implemented. South and North Korea should put the agreement into action with sincerity to turn the corner on relations and work towards peace and unification on the Korean peninsula.
The main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy also welcomed the deal, saying it was meaningful because the two Koreas managed to resolve the situation through dialogue. The NPAD reserved special praise for the government for easing tensions on the peninsula and receiving an expression of regret from the North.
We wish for the two Koreas to implement the agreement and improve inter-Korean relations in a constructive way. We will fully cooperate with the government's efforts to reconcile and establish peace on the Korean peninsula, to build South Korea's future, and achieve peace and prosperity in East Asia.
But the opposition party pointed out that South Korea's chief negotiator and top security advisor Kim Kwan-jin's briefing on early Tuesday was a bit of an exaggeration by saying that North Korea apologized over the matter, while the actual agreement stated that North Korea expressed regret over the landmine explosion. In response to the criticism, South Korean government officials claimed that an expression of regret in diplomatic terms generally means an apology and that Pyongyang's usage of the term regret is extremely rare. Officials added that given Pyongyang's initial denial of responsibility for the landmine attack, the North's expression of regret can be considered an actual apology. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
The group that calls itself Islamic State has released images that appear to show the destruction of Bal Shamin Temple in the ancient ruins Palmyra in Syria. A photo showing a massive explosion was shared on social media after Syrian officials said last weekend that the temple had been destroyed. There are other photos as well, like the one you're looking at now. They purportedly show IS militants setting explosives throughout the World Heritage Site and pictures of debris following the blast. The roughly 2,000-year-old temple was one of the most complete buildings in the UNESCO World Heritage City. Last week, a highly respected antiquities scholar was tortured, then beheaded when he refused to lead IS militants to treasures in the city. A prosecutor in France says the gunman who was foiled from carrying out a suspected terror attack on a high-speed train in France had terrorist intent. Speaking at a press conference on Tuesday, François Omolin said the suspect's plan was premeditated and targeted, and his claims that he only planned to rob passengers was far-fetched. French authorities have opened a probe into the gunman, Moroccan Ayoub al-Qassani, over attempted murders with terrorist intent. 3 Americans and a Brit managed to wrestle the 26-year-old suspect to the ground after spotting him loading an assault rifle on the train travelling from Amsterdam to Paris last Friday. China's main stock index plunged even further on Tuesday, ending at an 8-month low. In an attempt to counter the economic woes, China's central bank cut its key interest rate again. But Korea's main index actually rebounded on Tuesday, despite the risk coming from China. Kwon So-ah reports.
For the first time since December, China's benchmark Shanghai Composite broke its psychologically important 3,000 mark on Tuesday, just a day after their worst single-day plunge in 8 years. After a 4th day of falling stock prices, the People's Bank of China decided to cut its key interest rate by 0.25% to 4.6%, its 5th cut since November. Japanese stocks took a hit from China's stock shock, falling almost 4% Tuesday, but most other Asian markets, including Korea, stabilized. The benchmark Kospi rose more than 0.9% from the day before, and the tech-heavy Kosdaq increased by more than 5%. Financial Services Commission Chief Im Jong-yong said a deal reached by the two Koreas eliminated one of the risk factors in the domestic market. But experts say an ease of tensions between the South and North may not be enough to stabilize the market.
Looking at it from a more macroeconomic view, it's difficult to say that things are recovering, as Korea and China's markets are too closely connected.
Bloomberg made similar comments, saying it's China's economic policies influencing Korea's stock market, not Kim Jong-un's temper. With that in mind, the Korean government formed a special group of experts who met Tuesday to assess China's policy reforms and the effects of the China risk on Korea's economy. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
The amount of household credit is surging in line with Korea's household debt problem. Preliminary data from the Bank of Korea shows that during the second quarter of this year, household credit hit an all-time high, spiking $27 billion from the previous quarter to exceed $947 billion as of the end of June. Now, this represents an $80 billion jump from the same period last year, marking the fastest on-year growth on record. Household credit, which is calculated every quarter, includes credit purchases and loans from financial institutions. Borrowing has steadily increased since the central bank lowered the key interest rate 4 times since last year to boost sluggish economic activity. Now, with a little over 1 month left remaining before the Busan International Film Festival opens in Korea's southeastern port city, the organisers have announced its final lineup. At a news conference in Seoul on Tuesday, BIF executive directors said the Indian film Zu Ba'an will open this year's 20th edition of the festival on October 1st. 304 films from 75 different countries have been invited to this year's festival, and 8 films from 10 different countries, including Korean director Lee Seung-won's Communication and Lies, are competing for the award in the New Currents section. The festival, which will include a host of special events celebrating the 2 decades of its run, will close with Mountain Cry by Chinese director Arirang on October 10th. Well, that's all we have for now. I'm Mark Broome. Have a great day, and thank you as always for tuning in, and we do hope to see you at the same time tomorrow. Until then, goodbye.